Now, as our next speaker would be Mr. Ulrich Thombensen. As I mentioned before, he's the coordinator for the AMable project. He comes from Fraunhofer ILT. Please take the stage.
Thank you very much, and very warm welcome. Thanks for the invite to talk here today about the AMable project, which is a joint effort from a couple of research centers. Just like we have seen the MTC, we took 18 of those centers across Europe to have a consolidated basis for provision of services to SMEs. So AMable, additively manufacturable, that's the key term that covers the entire activity. We want to address SMEs in the uptake of additive manufacturing, and we proposed an activity to the European Commission, which has been implemented, granted funding, and which is there for the next 4 years. But we are already looking at the next phase after that. So we do not just want to operate a fancy project, but really to provide an ecosystem. And I will talk a little bit about that one today. This is the Aachen Cathedral. You can do that with additive manufacturing. But we stated right from the beginning, stop printing for the desktop. So there are two things that we don't want to do. We don't want to print for the desktop, and we do not want to print spoons. I mean, spoons to stir your coffee. That are the two things that we don't want to do. If you say additive manufacturing still searches for a serious application, then be assured, more than 99.x% of dental implants come from printing. If you say that there's no serial application yet, we've brought this guide vein cluster into serious production last year. So we are in serious production. If you say additive manufacturing is not used for prototyping anymore, then that is wrong, because we printed this as a one-to-one in size as a prototype for a car manufacturer. So we see a number of different applications, different things that you can do with AM, but the big question is, what can the SME do with it? Functional integration. I think this is the core product that changed the game in additive manufacturing. When GE published that they changed the design for their combustion nozzle from having 16 parts and being assembled to one single part only being post-processed, I think most people understood what's necessary to gain advantage from additive manufacturing. Functional integration. So if we look at applications today and all the options, then we have things like structures that we can print today which have a completely different behavior than you might think of in the first place. This is just lattice structure. This is hollow spheres, which should compress in a couple of milliseconds. And you see these hollow spheres, without powder in them, by the way, so we really managed to retrieve all the powder from those hollow spheres, have a completely different behavior. Now, again, back to the SME question. Is an SME capable to understand that and to make use of it? The development of applications has become more and more complex over the years, and we even don't know what to face in the next couple of years and what we will see as solutions. That's why in AMable we look for innovative ideas. We look to answer the question together with the SMEs in, can your idea be transferred to an additively manufactured product? If you look at the machine base, the same story again. There's so many companies offering systems. Do you think an SME is capable of differentiating between a concept laser, a Renishaw, a Trumpf, an SLM Solutions, and all these other products that are currently there at an industrial level and that currently arise? The same is true for services. There are plenty of printing services, FIT perhaps being one of the first ones, Toolcraft, aircraft massively ramping up, Polyshape being one of the key players in France, having a good base of installed machines. We need to help SMEs to understand that. And we need, I think you referenced it quite nicely, we need to do that independently of the material, independently of machine manufacturing companies, independently of material providers. They need to find someone to trust. So if we look at the success factors of AM, perhaps a short repetition only for you, lead time, complexity, performance, and weight reduction. So the integration of functionality, the reduction of weight, so all the benefits that you can gain. The problem today, let's tick off build time just now. I think build time is on new manufacturing equipment generations. But design, who today is able to understand the complete implications that come with a design on additive manufacturing, on post-processing? So SMEs need help to design a product that fulfills their requirements. Materials, they need to have assistance in selecting the right material for their application. It's not preset that a product needs to be produced in plastics or metal. There are plastics out there, especially in the polyamide area, which today have a performance that is comparable to a metal part if there's no thermal load. Again, this material selection has to be done in a discussion together with the SMEs. The question that the SMEs have to answer on the business side is, do I buy my own machine? Or do I do outsourcing? And it might even be necessary that they do this at a very early stage. So once they have the idea, once they have a concept to implement, they have to decide, okay, am I going to invest into a machine park? Or am I going to find 1 or 2 or 3 printing bureaus? Who is going to help them? Who is going to help them to understand the service, the amount of service they get from a service provider? AMable is trying to, let's say, implement this kind of service on the basis of 18 renowned service research organizations. And we created what we call the services arena. So with services like Design for AM, visualization. What about a company that wants to ensure that their design will stand a mechanical load? They might not be able to simulate this based on additive manufacturing processes. So simulation service is in there. If they need training for some machine operators, we might perhaps not execute the training because we don't want to get into competition with training centers. But we might tell them, please send your guys there or there, depending on a requirements analysis. What we also do is to address the question of where do I load my files? I don't want to elaborate on this one, but 2 main things. The one thing, not every SME is prepared to upload data into the cloud. A one-to-one exchange from me to the service provider is a pretty easy thing. If you can do that in a secure way, then we're talking about the industrial data space. 2 certified endpoints and you transfer the file. Nice exchange, you get your results back on the same way, but the data stays with you and in a maximum with the service provider. It doesn't go to the cloud where someone could access it. Blockchain is the other topic that we're doing with AMable. But we're using the blockchain only for documentation purposes. So if, for example, you sit down with a friend in the evening in a restaurant and you have a great idea of a product, you sketch that on paper. How do you do it? You go home, you scan it, you take the PDF file, you run it through a hashing application, and you link this hash into the blockchain. So what you do there, you keep the data with yourself, but you have something, this hash code, which is a precise identification of the file, and this documents that you had this idea and that you had this file at that moment where you linked it into the blockchain. So it's interesting for certification purposes. So at a later stage where you might have a case where you have to show your file, you can still prove that this file is exactly that what ran through the hashing algorithm in the first place. So at any time, design change, failure, assessment, quality assurance, you can prove that that file existed in your place. And this combination, I think, is a good offer to additive manufacturing because you can document everything, you have a closed digital data chain, and you have a one-to-one exchange with your service providers, with your print bureaus. Now, how are we operating that? We're operating that in the format of experiments. And such an experimentation team, which has a great idea, is going to team up. Main role is the supplier, the SME, who wants to produce that part. But the end user is driving the requirements. So the end user is specifying, I need this for that market, and if you supply me with that part in that quality, then I will be able to sell. The tutor from AMable is guiding the experimentation team through all the services and through all these stages. So it's a start-to-end activity where you can jump in with an idea and come out with a first product. We have 3 calls, one just closed. We might even have a 4th one. So we expect currently to have the next call open early next year. And what's needed for that is that you have an innovative idea for, as I said, not a spoon, not a desktop part, but a functional part. If you have that, then you can apply for funding. If you as an SME in the supplier role find a user, or if you in the user role find an SME supplier, then you can run such an experimentation team. This is the basis of institutions that support that entire activity. So it really covers from technology centers through data management, industrial data space itself is also within the consortium, business analysis and consultancy, so Keen Bull, PricewaterhouseCoopers with their strategy and division, Zabala as innovation activity, and EWF as a training service and training certification partner. That all is within AMable. And so the only thing I can ask you to do is come to our booth, discuss what SMEs need, what you need in order to do it, and follow the project if you want to find any news. And with that, I would like to hand back the stage to you.